Jack lived an amazing life, even though it was a rather short one. He was extremely smart, tremendously funny, and just a great guy. Whenever I think of the memories I have of Jack as a little kid, I will always remember him as a teenager that always seemed so superior to Rosemary and me. I remember when I was a little kid around the age of 7, Rosemary and me were best friends, and this is how I came to know her brother. As I spent more time at Rosemary's house and got to know Jack better, I realized that I found myself looking up to him with a sense of awe. I was shocked with all his physical aspects, how tall he was, his shoe size, and the amount of food he could consume in one sitting. I would often ask myself if I would ever be that way. Jack would always outsmart Rosemary and me. Being in high school, he was much wiser than the both of us, and he loved to annoy us. He would never let us play video games while he was playing. When we asked him why we couldn't play, he would just coolly reply by saying that he was older and better. It was the truth, so we couldn't argue. I also vividly remember the time that he taught me a bad word. We all learn curse words as we grow up. However, when Jack taught me, he didn't make it clear that the word had a negative connotation. So I went home all happy and said it to my mom. And she would always get mad at me. Now that I think of it, she's probably laughing behind my back the whole time. When I was 9 years old, my family moved out of state. Even though we kept in touch with Tree and Rosie, we didn't see Jack for 4 years. Then, when we moved back to New York, my mom and I went to Rosie's graduation party. Jack was there. It was a pleasure to see him again. When I was a kid, I was in awe over his physical aspects. However, when I saw him more recently, I came to realize how much he had matured from the teen I had known 5 years ago. The high schooler that was always superior to Rosie and me had now become an adult. I was no longer shocked by how tall he was and how much he ate, but I found myself intrigued by his intelligence, his humor, and his friendliness. I slept over at Rosemary's house that night, and I spent the whole night talking to Jack. That night, Jack and I really bonded, and I have never respected someone outside of my family as much as I respected Jack. I looked up to him a lot, and he was like a big brother to me. When we heard of Jack's sudden death, my mother and I were shocked to the point that we could not speak. But as we sat down to think about the tragedy, we slowly began to realize that Jack lived a great life. He had enjoyed wonderful experiences, from spending 5 weeks in the wilderness to studying in Australia for a year. Jack's life was full of variety and adventure. And most importantly, he knew how to have fun, and he always lived his life happily. Here, on this day, we should not shed tears over Jack's untimely death. That's not what Jack would have wanted. Rather, we should celebrate the life that Jack lived. We should recall the lessons and values he learned as he grew up. We should rejoice of all the things he had accomplished in his short life. We should be thankful that we all had the chance to know Jack while he was alive. Lastly, we should never forget Jack for who he was: a brother and son, a comedian, and a friend to all. Jack will always live forever.